Hi there, I'm Zach Steele.
I'm Tyler Hobart.
Um, we'll just this week we're just gonna run through players we think you should buy low and sell high on ahead of week 6. Just a quick note,
Yeah,
we're recording this as the Titans-Bills game is going, so it's possible that there's some change there, but if anything happens there, we'll update that in the comments. All right, so starters, on buy low, I really think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a hell of a buy low this week.
I
He's
agree.
he's the lead back in arguably the best offense in the NFL, and somehow the touchdown numbers just aren't there. But
hmm
he's on pace for like 1,700 yards from scrimmage on the season, which is nuts. He just happens to only have one touchdown. I know a lot of people are worried about the goal line work because if you watched week 1, he got stuffed a bunch and he hasn't really gotten many opportunities there. But it's not because they're taking him out of the game. It's just because the Chiefs have done their weird little trick shit where they throw it to a tackle or do a underhand toss so Mahomes gets a touchdown. Um, like that, I don't see that continuing for the whole season. The
hmm
touchdown numbers are going to regress, and Edwards-Helaire is going to be a top 5 to 10 running back the rest of the season. And I think a lot of owners are upset with what they've gotten out of him so far.
I agree. I think Clyde would be excellent if you can get him for a good price. I think Lamar Jackson's also a buy low. I don't know what he's at in everyone's league, but I think he's QB 11.
Yeah, I think so.
And you definitely paid way too much for him. And I believe, I don't know if we got it on video, but Zach was definitely um, calling out that Lamar would be a bust for the value you got him where you draft him, and so far that's been the case. But he's gone through some tough opponents, and I think if you have a frustrated owner that paid too much,
hmm
he could absolutely end up being elite in the second half of the season, and when you need him in the
Yeah, I
playoffs.
mean, I don't hate the player. I just didn't like the valuation earlier
No,
in the
he's
season.
no.
But like he's going to be a top 3 to 5 quarterback the rest of the season. I'd be
hmm
shocked if he isn't, just because of what he gives you on the ground, and
Yeah,
he hasn't
and so
given
I
that
think
much yet. So
you can scoop him up for cheap.
another guy on here I think to really target in trades is Deontay Johnson. Obviously Chase Claypool stole the show in Pittsburgh this week, and on top of that, Johnson exited the game early with I think it was a back injury. Um,
hmm
so a lot of people are probably really down on Deontay Johnson. He's only really played 2 full games this season, but in those 2 full games, he was pretty clearly the wide receiver 1 for Pittsburgh, and I don't think that changes going forward once he's healthy. Obviously, Claypool's a hell of a player, and they've got Juju as well. But in my mind, Deontay Johnson's the wide receiver 1 there, and he's probably owners are probably handing him out at this point. So just send an offer, see how much they want for him. I think he's going to be he'll be a top 20 receiver the rest of the season.
I agree. I like some Johnson. So I think McCaffrey is we've had him on the buy low for a couple weeks now.
Mm,
Um, Same story, nothing's changed. He's not back
yep.
yet. I don't think he's been activated yet either. But
Yeah.
if someone was holding on to him and it hasn't been doing particularly well, their team hasn't, and you can afford to make a trade for him, is be an excellent play going forward in the season.
Totally agree. Another guy here I think you should really buy low on is James Robinson. I know he's had a couple lackluster performances in a row. I think he finished with like 15 and then 10 PPR points the last 2 weeks. And I think a lot of fantasy owners are seeing the draft capital that both the Jaguars and fantasy owners put into him ahead of the season and thinking that this is just him regressing away from what he started the season out as. But the volume's still there. The target share's there. I think he had 5 receptions this last week. He just didn't fall in the end zone. The Jaguars ran a dumb 4th-and-1 play that had him throwing the ball that he ended up fumbling on. So like if he scores a touchdown on that play, he has 18 points instead of 10 in fantasy, and nobody's talking about him. Like he hasn't performed very well. I think he's a top 10 to 15 running back the rest of the season. I think a lot of owners aren't even viewing him as an RB2 right now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Just a quick thing. I think I just saw through that Le'Veon Bell's actually getting released right now.
Really?
So that's interesting. Yeah, from Fantasy
Whoa.
Life.
It is a good app as
So
much as Barry overhypes it.
yeah, so I'm like, whoa, like I'm just seeing that. But
Wow.
Another running back is James White. So he's played 2 games so far this year, and the Pats are coming off a bye. So I think that's an easy, like the owner maybe the owner when they drafted him is definitely thinking different today. So I think his role hasn't changed regardless of the amount that he's played and his situation. Hope he's doing well, but I think you can get a great player for cheap.
I agree. I think he's a solid RB 2 to 3 / flex play the whole season. A lot of people don't value him very much.
Yeah.
Another guy I love here is Tyler Lockett. He's had 2 bad weeks in a row, but when you get down to it, I think he's still the wide receiver 1 in Seattle's offense. I think Metcalf's got the higher ceiling on a week-to-week basis, and that's what we've seen so far this season. But Lockett's their possession receiver. He's going to end up with the most targets on the season. He's got a very nice, consistent floor. I mean, like, he disappeared this last game, didn't really have anything in the whole first half, and he still ended up with like 4 for 44, which isn't awful.
You
And
can do that.
he dropped a touchdown that would have won the game that Metcalf ended up getting. So, like, if he catches that touchdown, he finished with a great game. So, get Lockett right now, especially them going into bye. It makes his value even lower right now. Fantasy owners, if the Lockett owner in your league needs a win this week, they'll be really eager to get rid of him.
Yeah, he's a hell of a player.
Mm-hmm.
Next is Devontae Parker. So I think he's a great buy low simply because just off last week specifically in a game where they just got way ahead of the 49ers for some reason. And he didn't benefit nearly as much as the rest of that offense. So
you
I
called
think
Gaskins,
Devontae Parker, what do you have, like 40 yards? And
2 for 50 and a touchdown?
Oh, yeah, but I think he's still buy low. You guys touched him. Yeah, that was great. But Parker, I think, he's clearly kind of like Deontay Johnson, number 1 wide receiver. They have some other interesting guys, but I think he's clearly the most talented. And I think he's a wide receiver 1, and his stats aren't showing it, and maybe an owner is willing to move him.
I agree. I've been high on Parker for a long time. Another guy I've got here is Terry McLaurin. He had a really lackluster week this last week, and I think a lot of people were really worried that the quarterback change played a big part in that, but it doesn't get much worse than Haskins. Like, it can't. It's just a bad week. He's going to bounce back. Terry McLaurin's a top 20 receiver in the league, just skill-wise, and he's a target hog in that offense. He's going to have better days throughout the season, so get McLaurin while you can. A lot of people don't value him just because of the team he's on, and now the quarterback's throwing him the ball.
I agree. So Joe Burrow, I think, is a buy low simply because he's played an incredibly difficult schedule. Last week's as tough as it gets against the Ravens and had a really bad week, like under 200 yards and a pick. But that's a brutal defense, and that's like his 5th week in the NFL.
Yeah.
But the volume is there, and so I think if he's already sitting on someone's bench, you can go get a quarterback that has the potential to just put up points.
For sure. He's got weapons too. Like AJ Green's probably their 4th best receiver. And
yeah. I don't know if he's on the team by end of the year.
They should trade him. Somebody wants him.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know if he doesn't want to play or if he's as bad as he looks, but
I saw a clip of him on the sideline saying "trade me" this last game.
Really?
He's like, if you're not going to use me, trade me.
Wow.
But so we'll see. I doubt he'll get released like Bell, but
yeah,
he's not lived up to that franchise tag just yet.
Interesting.
All right, so moving on to players we think you should sell high on ahead of week 6.
So to start, we got Julio Jones. So he's coming off an injury, and Julio usually deals with these. And right now, the way I see selling Julio is sell the name, because personally, I don't like that Atlanta organization or the offense specifically right now. And especially with that injury, it's like, hey, if you can go get some solid players for cheap, specifically like some of those wide receivers that were on our buy low for Julio, like I think that's a move you should definitely look into making.
If you could trade Julio for Robbie Anderson right now, would you? As disgusting as that sounds.
Like that would hurt. Like if I'm
I know, but
Julio.
It's the wide receiver one in
Maybe.
Carolina.
So I basically love Robbie Anderson right now because it's still that clip with like Sir Purr. And like him in like the locker room, just like
Yeah.
there's just clips where I'm like, okay, I'm high on Robbie Anderson for like his off field stuff. But yeah, he's the number one wide receiver there. So like you have DJ Moore up next. I'm still high on him, but interesting to hear your opinion.
Yeah, well, the thing with DJ Moore is I think he's pretty clearly settled himself in as the wide receiver two in Carolina. I know he had a good week this week, but I think that's why you should get rid of him is it's going to
Hmm.
be tough for a wide receiver two to keep producing like that. And we're still early enough in the season that people are going to look at the draft capital he spent on Moore plus his performance this last week and think he's getting it turned around. I know he's got a lot of
Maybe. Yeah.
targets, but he's one of those guys kind of like Julio that just throughout his career doesn't find the end zone very often. So like I think he had
Yeah.
4 touchdowns in his career coming into this week. So I think the best week to trade him is in a week after he gets one because you're not going to get very many of those this season.
Hmm. So next we got Mike Davis. So just again, kind of reverse of buying low on Christian McCaffrey, Mike Davis with another stellar game. And so, I mean, if you can go get something for him while you still can, like,
Yeah.
please do. But he's been a heck of a player stepping in, which is interesting.
Is he going to get snaps even with McCaffrey back? He's kind of earned it.
He like that's what I'm saying. He's earned it, and like he's a veteran. So I'm
I,
like,
I
I
wouldn't
don't
be
know.
shocked
Maybe
to
they want
see a lot of two running back sets for them.
at least to start. I think if they want to
Yeah.
be cautious with McCaffrey, it's like kind of smart. I would say like you just paid that man a fortune. Like
It's
Mike
almost,
Davis is
or they
he's
could,
not slowing down. So
yeah, I wonder if they're regretting that contract already.
I mean, I like wouldn't because you're Carolina, but like
They're
paying running
throwing two?
backs just everywhere looks crazy right now,
Yeah,
especially with
I'd
yeah.
say Cook, but Cook got hurt too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so another
It's
guy I
tough.
want to sell high on is Mark Andrews. I wasn't really high on him at all coming into the season.
It should have been.
No. Um, last season he scored a touchdown on every 6.2 targets, and
It's like three
that's
now.
it's 3 now. Like it wasn't sustainable before, and it's really not now.
I think
Um,
he's gonna redefine.
no.
That's
like
crazy.
it's nuts. And you know what? Some players have seasons like that where they just put up touchdowns, but it's just one of those things that I'd bet against. He's not going to keep falling in the end zone on a week-to-week basis, and I think like there's right now there's 3 tight ends worth owning in people's eyes, or like starting on a week-to-week basis, and it's Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews because Ertz has been a bust. But I don't think Andrews kind of for me falls in the line of a touchdown dependent tight end, which isn't a tight end I'd like to value highly. Like I don't see
Yeah.
him as a huge step above a Hunter Henry or a Jonnu Smith. In fact, I think I might rather own Jonnu Smith the rest of the season.
I don't know that I agree, but it's a. I mean, the numbers are there, but I think he's a heck of a player in a
I've
offense that's
historically
stalled.
been low on the Ravens players for
Yeah,
some reason
yeah.
too, so it could just be
For
me.
some reason, I couldn't think of why. We, but we got Daryl Henderson.
Yeah,
So Daryl Henderson's I think is an easy sell high because that's a crowded backfield, and I think he had like under 50 rushing yards and a touchdown. And so if you
and
can
he
get
caught a
any
touchdown.
value out of, oh yeah, just the worst. So I think if you can sell Daryl Henderson, like you absolutely should because I don't think you can trust anyone in that backfield week to week.
I agree. Moving on here with Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know how much you can really get for him. I doubt he was in
Mm-hmm.
very many starting lineups this last week, but he had himself a game. He had like 12 receptions for 120 yards. I think it was almost like 130. But that offense isn't one that caters to 2 receivers having good games on a week-to-week basis. And once Michael Thomas is back in the lineup, I don't think you'll hear much from Emmanuel Sanders the rest of the season. So if you can trade Sanders for a playable asset the rest of the season, I think I would just do it.
Mm-hmm. So I have to go and mention Todd Gurley again. Like I will still say sell high on him, even though he went out and just smacked in the face. So
He looks good.
I had to play against a team with him this week, and yeah, he looked like too good, which is just annoying. So
Yeah.
but again, just another touchdown, which I don't like.
Nope.
So I think I don't really want to bet on Gurley keep the ball running 100+ rushing yards a game.
Mm-mm.
And this is the Gurley we're used to, and more so it's Carolina.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I'll be interested to see how that offense changes without Dan Quinn, but
yeah, but I mean,
I'm
it's
still
still the
selling Gurley
player.
if I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not himself as much as he looked respectable this last week.
Mm-hmm. So I was still gonna say sell high, and if
I
he
agree.
scores another 20+, I'll be here next week and sell high. So
Yeah. Another guy I'm putting on here is Devonta Freeman. I know he actually had a pretty decent week. I think he ended up with around 15 fantasy points in PPR this last week. But one, he fell in the end zone, and two, it was against the Cowboys defense that is bad and really bad.
really
So,
bad.
like, I think you saw Freeman's ceiling, which is sad. The ceiling for a workhorse in an
Mm-hmm.
offense is 15 points, because he's kind of getting
Yeah.
workhorse volume. But like, I don't see him being somebody that averages any more than 10 points per game for the rest of the season. But he still kind of got name value, and he had a good week. And if you can get an RB3 for him, do it.
Mm-hmm. So I think I want to sell high on Mike Gesicki. I think he's obviously like the Dolphins are very happy with him,
Mm-hmm.
but I think you should sell him because he's just, in my opinion, he's been lackluster and only had like a couple good games so far and a pretty bad like one catch outing. So
Yeah,
I think he's a easy sell high on if you can. But I mean, if you're strapped for tight ends, like I think he's still a talented player. But if you can package him with something, I think you should not count on last week being consistent.
I agree. So then lastly, I've got CeeDee Lamb here. First off, I think it's safe to say that offense is going to slow down with Dalton at the helm instead of Dak. On top of that, if you look at the
Definitely.
target distribution, before and after Dak came out, before Dak went out, I think CD had 8 targets, Gallup had 3, and Cooper had 1. And then after Dalton came in, each of them got 3. So
Ooh,
there was no clear standout there, and as good as CeeDee Lamb has looked, I think that's why you trade him, is because he's looked so good, and that offense just can't keep producing the way it has. I think CeeDee Lamb's a
yeah,
fine RB or wide receiver 2/3 the rest of the season, but he's not the wide receiver 1 in that offense, and that
not
offense
anymore.
isn't going to be what it's been. So
Yeah, I think unfortunately you got to get rid of him. Maybe next year, but
I mean, a dynasty roster him. He's great,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, that'll be it for this week. If you like this content, we do these every week, so be sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe. And you want to follow me on Twitter, it's posted right there, but I'll link it in the comments as well. Thanks for watching.